Okay, Frank, nice to meet you. It's a pleasure to have you here.
It's my pleasure too, Andrea.
I don't know if you know it, but it's something that is important to me. I followed your program and what you did on your website. I had some talks with Ansgar. We often talked about you, so I was really happy to have you here. And it was so nice to have you here and to exchange all this information. And now I also know some question more to ask you.
Let me thank you for the invitation. And you should know that it's also important for me to have you as a discussion partner, because this, let's say, our topic is so complex, and you're an engineer, I'm an engineer too, and it's another way of discussion.
Yeah, it's sometimes easier, and we have different way of working on the same problem, I would say. And sometimes I do it with my students, but to explain something it takes much longer, and they have to grow and to have their own feeling. And so the first question, and then I will go back to your life and so on. But how did you start this idea of having this kind of software that is called CADSD? I let you introduce this software, but also how you had this idea.
Yes, this is a longer story, because I'm a very curious human, and music plays an important role in my life. And when I remember back, I'm always on the search for new rhythms or sounds. In my field, it starts with rhythms. I have some African drums and play the drums. And one time a good friend of mine says, "Hey Frank, when you play your drums, the shaman comes through." And I thought about it, and yes, he was right. When I play the drums, it's not me, it's my body. And yes, but rhythms are the one thing, the other thing are sounds. I'm interested in sounds, and now I know also that I'm not a typical musician. I have played in a band, and I have played also sometimes on stage in several projects, but I'm not a typical musician. I'm more a sound explorer. Yes. And this started in the 70s and the 80s. I had in this time contact with electronic music.
Yeah.
And I had early contact with Klaus Schulze and the early Tangerine Dream. These are the sound pioneers of electronic music. And I tried also in this time to make electronic music by myself. And some years later, I heard very special sounds, and it was randomly. I was at a concert from an Australian player. It was a white player, and he plays the didgeridoo. And I thought, what's this? It's a really acoustic instrument, no electronics, and has such interesting sound capabilities. And then at this time I decided to learn it, and I did self-taught and learned on easy tube, and then I started with my first Australian didgeridoos, and I was a little bit disappointed because the real Australian didgeridoo is often not so easy to play. And as a scientist and an engineer. I know you're an engineer, I am an engineer too, and a scientist. I'm very interested in complex natural processes, and because I love mathematics and physics, I'm maybe a little specialist in mathematical modeling of complex processes. We use this for simulation purposes. Most I did it in biological systems. I'm a biotech, I have a PhD in biotech, but with this kind of know-how you can also start with other things, and then I decided to make the sound better. This was the start of my way of the endless search for the better didgeridoo. Maybe you're on the same search, and I think
in a different way.
Yes, every player is on the search. And when you start with very bad instruments, a lot of players they give up. But when you could have good instruments in early time, then maybe you've fixed on. Yes, and this was the start of my scientific exploration and research into this instrument. And at that time, I noticed that only some groups in the world did research on this topic. The bigger group were in the University of New South Wales in Australia, and curiously a group in Israel.
Yeah.
But the know-how that they have and that I found was not deep enough to create this kind of instruments around.
I think so too.
Yes. And this was the start of my project, my private research project, and this falls also in the time of 2000, where the Olympics were in Sydney.
Yeah.
And maybe you remember there were an Aboriginal player on the roof of the Sydney Opera and played didgeridoo, and in this time the instruments comes more in the
more visible, more common, and appreciated and researched, and it was they started to look for it because it was something strange and new, and it was highlighted by a huge event.
Yes, and this was new territory for me, and I found one method. It's called transmission line modeling, and it comes from I think it was developed between the 80s and the 90s, and I saw the capability of this method, and this was my basic of the modeling. And after I programmed my first version, I need some persons for this discussion, and it was not so easy to find people. And I remember at this time I were very open with my know-how, and after 1 or 2 years, other groups published information and also for my know-how, but without citing me.
Yeah, this is really bad.
Yes, it's bad, but it was not so important for me because I don't want to publish in scientific papers. I want to build my instrument, my instruments. And then I found a partner in Hamburg, Kai Reimer, and this is a guy, he experimented during this time with variable hardware instruments.
Yeah.
And he says, oh wow, it's nice that there is a person that he do this, and then we start our.
Okay, so the beginning of your software was like some freewares that are available right now. Just you could just put the dimension of the length and the diameter, and you got some results.
The first start were yes, I start with the dimensions. At this time I used, I think, 20 segments. This method is you have to solve an acoustic chain matrix in the area of complex numbers.
Yeah,
it's a little bit strange, but it works fine. And
yeah, but to say something very simple to understand for people they don't know this kind of topic, the software was able to solve a complex formula with dimension of 20 cylinders or truncated cone altogether.
Yes. Yes, the only thing that the software can calculate is the acoustic impedance spectra, and I saw the spectra and I was happy. At this time I thought, oh, this is the sound spectra. And then Kai asked me to calculate some inner shapes he has, and I did it, and it don't fit. And then it comes, and then I noticed that the impedance spectra is only the spectra of the intrinsic resonances of the air column, and shows only the place of the playable tooths.
Yeah.
But my target were to create special sound characteristics, and here there start my own research. I try to develop the model further and try to simulate it, the sound spectra, the real sound spectra you can hear.
Yeah.
Maybe I can explain it later on an
Sure.
example, because
I think we will have another short video of you.
Okay.
On that topic. So if someone wants, you can subscribe the channel or just paying attention, and the next video will be published with an explanation of this topic that is the main important thing you can find about this topic all over the world.
You may notice I'm not so the video man.
Yeah.
I'm more the writing man, and you can find all the things on my website in German and in English.
Yeah, sure. You will find the link in the info box, and maybe sometimes also during the video in case it is needed.
Yes, and at this time I took part also on several workshops. My first workshops were with Charlie McMahon, also with Ganga Giri and Stephen Kent. And others.
Good. I heard the name of Kai Reimer. I know Kai Reimer is one of the guy that was very important for this project, but also for you and for your life. Can you tell me something more about him?
Kai Reimer is one of the early pioneers from the German didgeridoo scene. He started, I think, in 1990, maybe a little bit earlier, and in Kai I found, I cannot say now, a real soulmate. It's a really important gift for me to find or to could found such a nice friend. It's more than a friend. It's a really soulmate. And at this time we worked together, or we started our work together. Kai worked also on a book. In German it's das Didgeridoo Phänomen. This book is also in English. It's called Didgeridoo phenomenon. And yes, and Kai did the picture here on the book, and Ansgar Stein
made the layout inside.
Yes, made the layout. And Kai says, your stuff is so interesting, you have to put it in this book, yes. And therefore, when you see the book had first, I think, 12 chapters, and now it has 13 chapters. And yes, and this was the start. And the German version of this book was published in 2003, and the English translation we published in 2005.
Yeah.
Yes, and the interesting thing is that things we published in this book came earlier than the things in the scientific press.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I do remember that book when I got it.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to continue about other things you told me that I think are very important for who is interested in the didgeridoo, and for your life and for your career also in the didgeridoo.
Mm-hmm.
So the next question is, I know you traveled in Australia, and I don't want to spoil the end, but you met very important personalities there, and I know that with your software also you take care really a lot of the kind of choral tone and things about traditional music. So what can you say about this topic?
This is also an interesting topic for me. Maybe after 2 years playing, after 3 years playing, I had the possibility to take part on the first Ripango Yidaki Masterclass Festival with Geipel and the part of his family.
In the Black Forest, in the south of Germany.
Yes, in the south of Germany. And it was so interesting and also so strange. And you know, I'm a sound explorer. And if I heard this sound from the Aborigine people, it was a complete other world for me. And my sound was, since this time, my sound was, yes, I call it flat. Sorry for that, but yes, and I think this experiments to alive these people were also a new start. And another interesting point is during a festival in south of Germany, they had a big tent, a very big tent for some 100 people, and one of the guests was Sven Molder.
Yeah.
And at this time, Sven Molder runs a business with the Geipel family and sold Yidakis in Germany and Europe. And it was curious. Before Sven wanted to start his playing, the power failed, and after some seconds or minutes, Sven says, no matter, this is an acoustical instrument, it's an instrument, it's played in nature. In nature we have no power, we have no amplification, and start to play.
Right.
And I was so fascinated. He used relatively only a few of energy to bring very fat sounds out of this instrument, and very special for me were the, what's the word, maybe shimmering harmonics, shimmering overtones came from all over from all directions. And I thought, what's this? Is this magic? Or but I'm a scientist. I thought, no, it's no magic. You can maybe you can describe or you can research it from the physical point of view. And one day later, I asked Sven if he could play for a record some on his instruments, and he played, and it was so amazing how reproduce this effect were, but only on his special instruments with his special traditional playing techniques. Yes, and this was the start point. I decided to learn this kind of playing. It was hard because it was a completely new start for me. I had to probe with my Western playing style. At this time I played on the left side, and then I changed to the central side, and I need maybe 6 weeks or 8 weeks, and then it comes.
It's a few. I can't play at all in front.
Uh-huh.
But to give some information to the person they are watching the video, since this point is really important and I know what you are saying, you are talking about the wobbling over harmonics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that is a great part of the research you do mostly when you research a shape. So if you heard what he was saying, please come back and just go back a couple of minutes and listen it again, because trust me, it is really important. We talked hours about this topic, and so don't lose it. You will find also information later in a new video where Frank will explain how to read the spectrum of the didgeridoo. So I just wanted to highlight this because he spent so much time and it is so great what he did that you don't have to lose it. So sorry for the interruption.
Thank you. Yes, I try to describe this effect, and I have found a physical explanation, and I call it harmonic wobbling, because in physics wobbling is changing of a sound between two border frequencies, and I called it harmonic wobbling because the sound wobbles between two good hearing harmonics.
Yeah.
And this was magic for me. And now I know when I play this and I hear it, and I ask other people, can you hear it? And they say, no. What do you? Harmonic wobbling, I don't hear it. But now I know we have a perception problem. Not problem. You have to learn percept harmonics or overtones. There are a lot of people, they're not able to hear the overtones, and other people, they never heard this or never noticed this. You know, we have a selective perception,
yeah.
And they don't know that. But when you hear it first time and you like it, and I like it, then it's so fascinating.
I had the same problem at the beginning because I was really a beginner, and I remember I used to play didgeridoo for some month, maybe 6 months, and I met Hans Gerstein, and he was a guest in my house, and he spent 3 or 4 days for the festival at my house, and he was talking to me about this wobbling harmonic, and I tried to understand it. It was not so simple because the sound of the didgeridoo to me was so complex that I was not able to individuate these two or even sometimes one sound that appear and disappear. I thought it was something about the tongue movement, for example. And so it took me a while, but then after a while listening, it was clear. It was much more clear.
This is an interesting story. I met Ansgar, I think it was maybe 2003 or 2004, also in Hamburg with Kai. And at this time, we built together with Kai the first harmonic wobbling instruments, only to show that this is no magic, that this is yes,
you can reproduce.
Yeah, yes. And one of the first instruments, Ansgar falls in love of the first harmonic wobble instrument made from glass fiber. It's a E, and I think this is yes, this is Ansgar's instrument. It's yes, he used similar instruments in his workshops, and it's nice.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for your answer. We take a short break, and I come back with new question.
Okay.